Hello everyone. So I wanted to make a quicker update on the video I released previously for a couple of different reasons. First of all, there are a bunch of stuff that I did not talk about, and the video got incredibly long already. So I kind of wanted to remedy that and briefly go over the stuff I've missed. And then I received one comment that I agree a lot on the previous video that said that of course new players might be very discouraged, even if I said that the mageblood that I have equipped doesn't really matter for the build. It might still be discouraging for them. So I agree with that comment. So here I recreated the previous version of my build. You can see all my items here. Actually, this is even a worse version of the build that I had, as I basically sort of rebuild it from scratch, because I had sold everything when I got my mageblood. So I basically got scuffed versions of the items that I had before, and now we will do this map, and you'll see that it doesn't matter. We're still tanking everything. We will take every altar that pops up, and everything will be fine. So when I wanted to go over this video, very briefly, three things. First, I wanted to do this showcase. Then I kind of want to talk about some kind of maybe less obvious mechanics that I forgot to mention. And finally, I want to go over basically all our item choices, what they do for us, and then give you a list of map modifiers that are particularly bad for this map, and what you should avoid and what you can ignore, basically. So yeah, so let's go. Okay, so for the parts about the extra mechanics, not many people might know that the only damage types that can actually poison are physical and chaos damage. What that means is that our setup with tornado and ball lighting, this, even if you have a 400% chance to poison, will never poison the enemy. So we need some kind of way to inflict either chaos or physical damage. The cyclone will still do it by itself, but that's a very small portion of our chance to poison. So you either poisoning through a basinification. You can see the last line, gain 7% of elemental damage as extra chaos damage. This will convert the damage into chaos, and that chaos damage will be able to poison. Or otherwise, when you're further into your build and you've got one element like this, which loses that line, you then have to switch to a circle of nostalgia for your rings, which will add back the chaos damage. So yeah, that's one very quick and simple things I wanted to mention, because you might be wondering why, for instance, maybe you're at the start of your build, you don't have your helmet already, you put the setup together and you never poison anything. So that's the answer. Okay, so now let's go over the items and what they do and what they provide for us. And I want to start this discussion by quickly going over our weapon choices. This is the simplest and cheapest option. It's just plus 3 levels to Herald of Agony, which is still a massive DPS boost, so that's pretty good. The Seer is my recommendation, basically, because you sacrifice 1 level, but in exchange for that, well, first of all, you're even blinding enemies on it, which is kind of nice. But mostly you're gaining a massive amount of energy shield and mana, which is pretty useful for our survivability. As you can see, by equipping it, I jump up to 5.2k, and this is our min-maxing DPS option, because we don't have any kind of additive bonus to crit chances for our minions. So by equipping this, the minion-based crit chance is basically tripled. So that's very useful. However, this massively overtakes in DPS only after when you're fully done with your build and you're now optimizing or whatever. So for all intents and purposes, I will just stick with Dark Seer. Okay. Helmet. Abrazinification. Very cheap source of reduction to mana reservation. Pretty good. A nice amount of energy shield, a nice amount of mana, stun recovery. That's nice, as we don't get immunity to stun normally. we get like some partial immunity to it through our Pantheon here. This helps us get back to spinning faster. So that's mostly it. And even the Void Gaze is actually DPS increase for us. I think it lowers chaos resistances or something, so nice. I don't think I need to say much on this shield. This shield, as I said, is a very meta item. We have a bunch of armor, so this is every time we block, we basically fully recharge our energy shield. Furthermore, it's max cold resistance, which is nice, and it's also elemental resistances, which since we're running all unique items, so basically we don't get to use, for instance, one of those rings that have like a 132% like overall elemental resistances. So this is basically like helps us get to our cap. The amulet. This is once again we're getting attributes, which we massively need. As you can see, like we are barely making what's required for our items, so every little bit counts here. And we're also getting levels to Herald of Agony and quality to our gems, which once again are useful for DPS. It's also kind of cheap. Our rings, so you have a couple of options here. These are a Circle of Ambition. These once again are my scuffed rings that I just bought for to do the showcase. So the optimal like the DPS setup is one Circle of Ambition and one Circle of Nostalgia. The Circle of Ambition that we have are like the useful part is that they have the mana reservation efficiency and increased mana reservation efficiency of our skills. So we get to double up basically on our mana reservation efficiency, which, as you can see from our mana, is severely needed because we are reserving a big chunk of it. This of course sacrifices the Agony Crawler deals increased damage, which is a big chunk of damage, of course. Also useful because you get attributes which you need, you get elemental resistances which you need, and since these are very cheap, you can get a bunch of useful implicits for it. Like for instance, this one that gives me increased door effect for my discipline. Okay, when it comes to our chest, we basically have two options: either Skin of the Lord or Skin of the Loyal. This is surprisingly good, even defense-wise. Even though we have no explicit attributes for our defense, we get 100% increased global defenses. So this increases armor, energy shield, evasion rating, basically everything that we use. And most importantly, is another +2 levels to our Herald of Agony, which, as you can see here, is a crazy level 33. This is good even if the last line is useless. As I said, Mageblood is probably the ideal one. There are other decent options, but yeah, even with a shit last line, this is still a big DPS and defense upgrade. Our gloves, once again, this is very convenient for a bunch of reasons. You get max energy shield, you get another curse. This is pretty useful. As we want to apply basically all our curses, especially for our belt, which we'll see in a second. But this allows us to also add the Assassin's Mark on enemies, which will give us power charges, and we will see with our belt why power charges are so important for us. And it's also a nice chunk of energy shield too, which always helps. We need to get our energy shield up, of course, to be tanky. Finally, this is the cheapest part. These boots are 1 chaos and maybe 50 to 80 chaos with a useful implicit. I've got this extra chance to suppress spell damage, and these are beautiful. For being so cheap, they provide so much for us. This is a chance to block spell damage, which you might remember for our 3 is also mana regeneration rate. So this is a big mana regeneration rate upgrade. This is chance to suppress spell damage through our implicit. This is more mana that we need. This is a bunch of elemental resistances which we really need, and the movement speed also is nice to compensate the movement speed we lose by spinning. As I said before, this is not the fastest build. In fact, I would say relatively slow, so this really helps. Finally, this is the belt of choice until you run your until you get your mageblood, I guess. I even prefer it for a bunch of stuff. So first of all, it's more elemental resistances, which once again helps us like alleviate our problems with that. It's a very sizable chunk of energy shield. Yeah, almost 2k. It's a stupid amount of lightning resistances for some reason. But what we really care about is the absorption charges that it grants us. So if you don't know this, absorption charges, you recoup 12% of elemental damage taken as energy shield. So basically when you're at max power charges, this is 48% like less elemental damage taken. This makes it so that you either get one-shotted or you're basically immune to elemental damage because you're already taking very little of it, and then like almost half of it you then recoup as energy shield. So yeah, this is an incredibly nice defensive belt, and it's also extremely cheap. Now when it comes to our flask, this is the same as it was in the mageblood version, and then we're running a couple of use when charges reach full that grants us like a generic like defensive bonuses like more armor, block attack damage, block spell damage, more armor, more evasion rating, chance to suppress spell damage, phasing, and this 0.8% of spell damage leached as energy shield, which is not irrelevant. And lastly, since we're not immune to bleeding as we were, we run this. This will proc every time we start bleeding, and will make us immune to bleeding and corrupted blood. So that's everything, I guess. So finally, I wanted to go over, before I move on to map modifiers, I kind of wanted to basically explain why we're so tanky. So if we pop all of our potions, we can see we have stupid amount of armor, stupid amount of energy shield, a stupid amount of like energy shield recharge, evasion rating, a chance to block spell damage, a chance to suppress spell damage, a chance to block attack damage, a chance to block spell damage. Like basically the way this works is that we stack bonuses on top of each other. And they all like basically compound, which is also why it feels very squishy until you've put everything together, because like we are relying on evading a lot of the times. Of the times that we don't evade an attack, it will be blocked. If it won't be blocked, maybe it will get suppressed. If it won't get suppressed, it will do a little damage because we have high armor, and then we will, if it's elemental damage, we will also recoup it through our belt. Like as you can see, it's basically like a Jenga tower that gets stuck on top of each other. Okay, so now let's move on to map modifiers. So there are 3 map modifiers which are actively bad for us. The least bad one is the enemy with a chance to avoid the poison. The map is perfectly doable, it just takes a bunch of time, because you will never get to high stacks, so you will do little damage. So yeah, it's annoying, you might as well reroll. Then the incredibly bad one is the reduced effect of non-curse auras, because this will chunk all their defenses at the same time. You will have less armor, less evasion rating, and less energy shield. You will be stuck on like 1.5k life, basically, which will make you very susceptible to one-shots. The map is still doable, however, you have to be extremely careful. You basically have to spin in a distance and then like let your tornadoes and your balls do all the stacking. You cannot get close to enemies. I mean, if it's like a juiced up tier 16, of course, in like lower tier you can do it. You can not care and go in anyway. So that's the only one that I would truly avoid. And finally, you cannot regenerate life and mana. This is more annoying than anything else. The way you do this is you take away this flask and you get a mana flask, and then you keep spamming it basically as you're fighting, and you know that's doable. It should also be noted that since we're running an automation setup here, in those kinds of maps, it gets extra annoying. Because if you're not fighting, for instance, if you like take a couple of seconds to pick up an item or whatever, your automation will keep proccing, and you will run out of mana, and maybe you don't have another charge of your flask to go back to fighting. So yeah, so these are the very like the 3 like really bad ones that I would avoid. Slightly bad maybe worth mentioning, extra crit damage, extra crit multiplier. We are immune to critical strikes. You might remember from our tree. We poison enemy, and enemy poisoned by you cannot deal crit strikes. However, to poison enemy, we often have to get in contact with them, so they might hit us and one-shot us, basically. This calls, until your build is very strong, this calls for, once again, the defensive playstyle, where you spin kind of far away, or at least like you circle around the enemy trying to dodge stuff, until you've poisoned them at least, and then the modifiers gets completely annulled. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to go over for the update. Bye-bye, have a nice spinning spidery adventures.